Hello, and welcome to the first ever episode, the first one of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. This is going to be a show where every week I come on here and I talk about geek shit. The biggest news in the world of nerdy movies. So, comic book movies, Star Wars. Are there any other movies that are made? I don't know, but we'll talk about them. Uh, and yeah, and it's pretty loose. Like I'll also talk about like a video game that I'm interested, or like a show. We'll talk about like the Marvel shows and the Star Wars shows, and stuff like just big shows. But the show is primarily focused on movies. Um, but yeah, let's just jump into it because I'm Philip DeFranco. So we're jumping into the news. So, first up, in an interview with MSNBC, Regina King was asked about her involvement with the upcoming Superman movie, the one that's, being written by Ta-Nehisi Coates and is reportedly going to have a black Superman, and that because, of course it is, it's controversial. But Regina King, she's one of the directors that have been rumored to be, up for the role or being considered by Warner Brothers. Other directors include Barry Jenkins, Ryan Coogler, Stephen Cable Jr., other people as well. And Regina King basically says that no, she has not been approached, and basically that the news has come as a surprise to her. And so, yeah, this is basically just confirming that Warner Brothers haven't approached her yet. Doesn't necessarily mean that they haven't been considering her. It's just that they haven't actually made the move to approach her. And another way that you can kind of take her comments, and if you watch the interview, then you can kind of judge for yourself. But she kind of says it in sort of a way that you could interpret it as her. Maybe she has been approached and she knows that she can't say anything about it, so she's kind of trying to dismiss it. It also does kind of come across in that way, but I don't know. That's just me looking into things. As far as we know and can say for sure, based on the words of the people involved, Regina King has not been approached to direct Superman. And our second story comes from James Gunn's Instagram, Twitter. I think it's his Instagram. Yes, it was his Instagram. Yeah, basically he posted a new image from the Suicide Squad. It looks cool. Apparently they're undercover, even though, especially with the Thinker there, they definitely stick out like a sore thumb. But it's a cool shot. I'm excited to see what these characters are like, and it just kind of indicates to me that this movie will be very wacky and James Gunn-y, and I'm excited to watch it. Next up, we have Army of the Dead being a pretty massive success. So this is the movie was directed by Zack Snyder. It's about zombies. The cinematography kind of gave me a headache, but my personal well-being doesn't matter because everybody's apparently loving this movie and wanting to check it out. Yeah, it's already in Netflix's top 10 most watched movies. So the current rankings stand... at number 9 is tied between Army of the Dead and The Midnight Sky at 72 million. Project Power is at number 8 with 75 million. Enola Holmes is at number 7 with 76 million. The Old Guard is at number 6 with 78 million. Murder Mystery is at number 5 with 83 million. Six Underground is also at number 4 with also 83 million. I'm assuming that margin is very small. Spencer Confidential is at number 3 with 85 million. Bird Box is at number 2 with 89 million, and Extraction, that Chris Hemsworth movie, is at 99 million. So, yeah, Army of the Dead off to a really good start. I'm assuming that the movie is probably going to climb up these rankings at some point, although Netflix they just release so much content that it honestly does feel like content just comes to Netflix, is talked about for like 3 days, and then just completely falls off the map. So Who knows? Maybe Army of the Dead kind of stays around this area, but either way, they have to be pleased with this result. So next up, we have a story about the Spunk, the Sony Pictures Marvel Universe of characters. Ridiculous acronym, but I love it. But in an interview with Variety, one of the Sony executives, he has this interesting quote that I want to read to you guys. We don't really think of our 900 characters as the Spideyverse, he says. We have a Marvel Universe. The volume of characters we have, wait until you see this next Venom. You don't miss Spider-Man. He pauses. It'll be exciting if they do meet, right? So, right there, we have a pretty cheeky little tease at the possibility of Spider-Man and Venom, or Spider-Man showing up in Venom Let There Be Carnage, or at the very least, them meeting up at some point in this franchise. And it does kind of just add another little puzzle piece that we're all trying to solve with Sony and Disney's relationship regarding Spider-Man, because their partnership is ending with No Way Home. Now, it's totally likely that they might just re-up the deal and continue on as they've been doing. But it's also possible that Sony just takes Spider-Man back and says, no, he's ours again. You can't use him anymore. And, start using him in their own Spider-Man universe, with Venom and Morbius and Craven now. So I'm not sure. And there's also the added sort of wrinkle of perhaps them crossing over and the Spunk being in the MCU itself, which is kind of interesting because we basically got that sort of confirmation with Michael Keaton showing up at the Morbius teaser, but a thing that I've been recently thinking about is the multiverse. Like, what if the Spunk is actually just another universe within the larger multiverse of the MCU? Like, maybe Michael Keaton does show up in Morbius, but it's not the Michael Keaton from Homecoming. It's a different Vulture. I don't know. I've just been thinking about this because that could be a way to do this. Have it be so that the Sonyverse is a different universe, but through the multiverse shenanigans that we'll see in Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and Spider-Man No Way Home, maybe that's how we end up seeing Tom Holland Spider-Man crossing over with the Venomverse. Or another thing that I've also think is absolutely a possibility is just, the Spunk gets treated as the sort of Netflix Marvel shows where those were technically in the MCU, but they never really crossed over in any meaningful way. Like, we never saw Daredevil show up in an Avengers movie or anything like that. Sort of have that relationship, but have Spider-Man be that character that crosses over. I also think that that's a possibility. What I don't think is necessarily a possibility is sort of Sony movies being in the fold of the sort of narrative web that Kevin Feige is weaving. Just because Kevin Feige does not have control over what Sony's doing with their movies, and so I don't foresee them being meaningfully intertwined with what's going on in the MCU, but I could see them both kind of existing in the same universe, but never interacting with each other. However, having Spider-Man be the one character that does bounce back and forth. But either way, this is interesting. Just more teases. We'll see what comes from this. Next up, we have Seth Rogen teasing his new Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that he is producing. He released this little image on Twitter, and it's a bunch of doodles and stuff, which is cool. Apparently, this movie is gonna focus a lot more on the teenage aspect of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which this definitely indicates. And yeah, it's just kind of they're meant to be I guess doodles and sort of notes written by Leonardo, so it's a cute little way to sort of introduce this movie to a lot of people. And it is also slated to come out on August 11th, 2023, and It's also been reported that it's going to be a CGI animated movie. It's not going to be live action, which honestly is more appealing to me. I'm not a huge Ninja Turtles fan, but all the iterations of them that I've personally enjoyed the most come from animation, like some of the cartoon stuff. And actually, I really like that other CGI animated movie that they made. I think it was just called TMNT or something. I don't even know if it was a theatrical release, but I remember I really loved that movie when I was a kid. So I'm up for this. An animated Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie intrigues me. And for our next story, we have Indiana Jones 5 to actually begin filming next week. This is a movie that I feel like has been in development hell for 85 years. However, after Steven Spielberg left, they got James Mangold directing. We started hearing a bunch more about the cast. And it's supposedly gonna begin filming next week. I'll believe it when I see it. once I see those set photos, then I'll be like, oh, okay. I guess this movie is actually happening now. But I don't know. I'm intrigued by this movie as well, kind of like TMNT. And not to be ageist, but Harrison Ford is like, I think he's like pushing 80. So I'm interested to see how they go about this movie. Like, I think you can make an Indiana Jones movie about an older Indiana Jones movie. What am I saying? You can make an Indiana Jones movie about an older Indiana Jones. I guess it's just all about the type of story that you want to tell. I'll be interested to see how much action is in this movie, or if it's a bit more of a meditative film. Yeah, it's interesting to say the least, and hopefully we have like a good send off for the character. Hopefully it doesn't end with Indiana Jones 4. Hopefully Indiana Jones 5 can be just a good, solid movie to say we ended on a high note. So, yeah, not much else to say. It's filming. It's finally happening. We shall await to hear more about it. So now we have a story from the New York Times where one of the writers for James Bond, John Logan, he basically wrote an opinion piece about Amazon buying MGM, which basically gives them 50% ownership over the James Bond franchise. And basically he's saying he's not happy about it. And I'll read a couple of stuff from a couple of lines that he wrote. Having worked as a writer on Skyfall and Spectre, I know that James Bond isn't just another franchise, not a Marvel or a DC. It is a family business that has been carefully nurtured and shepherded through the changing times by the Broccoli/Wilson family. He also goes on to say, what happens if a bruising corporation like Amazon begins to demand a voice in the process? What happens to the comradeship and quality control if there's an Amazonian overlord with analytics parsing every decision? What happens when a focus group reports that they don't like Bond drinking martinis or killing quite so many people, and that English accent's a bit alienating? So could we have more Americans in the story for marketability, he said? And so yeah, basically, he is worried that, Amazon is going to ruin James Bond. And it's not a ridiculous fear to have, because I get it, having an almost Orwellian company like Amazon take over a franchise. Like, yeah, I could see the worry from that. But these are all just kind of like hypothetical scenarios that he's coming up with. Like, the truth is that Amazon, generally speaking, makes really good content. At least on TV, The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel is really great. The Boys is really great. Invincible is really great. I've heard The Expanse is great. I have not watched The Expanse, but I've heard it's great. So, generally speaking, their content is just really good. And at least in the case of something like The Boys and Invincible, it seems like they just kind of let their creatives do whatever. Those are not exactly sanitized shows, that is trying to appeal to the widest audience possible. It just kind of feels like they're letting their creatives adapt the source material in a really faithful and cool way. Especially so with Invincible. Um, so I get his fear, but it just seems kind of unfounded. Like, if he had examples of Amazon doing the things that he's talking about, then maybe I could see where he's coming from, but he's just kind of saying, well, what if this bad thing happens? And it's like, well, then that would be bad, but we have no real indication that it's going to happen. And also just his thing where he's saying that James Bond isn't just another franchise like a Marvel or a DC. Yes, it is. It is another franchise like a Marvel or a DC. You could say that you could say that, it's been better than Marvel or DC, but that's an opinion, and at the end of the day, it is another franchise like Marvel or DC. So, yeah, I can understand the fear that he has, but it seems a bit unfounded just because we have a track record for Amazon and they don't appear to be all that controlling or like all that sanitized as far as their content goes. So just chill out a bit, Mr. Logan, sir. Next up, Thor: Love and Thunder wraps shooting. So Chris Hemsworth posted on Instagram that's a wrap, what's his voice like? That's a wrap on Thor: Love and Thunder. It's also National Don't Flex Day, so I thought this super relaxed photo was appropriate. The film is gonna be batshit crazy, off the wall, funny, and might also pull a heartstring or two. Lots of love, lots of thunder. Thank you to all the cast and crew who made this another incredible Marvel journey. Buckle in, get ready, and see ya in cinemas. That kind of went between Australian and Cockney, I feel like. But near the end, I got to full on Australian, and I think you have to get me credit on that one. But either way, Thor: Love and Thunder has wrapped shooting, apparently. I swear, after like 2020 and just having Hollywood come to a standstill, seeing just Marvel rev up that Marvel machine again and just they are just working on all of these movies. Like, I feel like it feels like every day they're like, oh yeah, we wrap shooting. We're done on Spider-Man. We're done with Thor. I think we started filming Miss Marvel or whatever. I think they started filming the Marvels as well. I don't know. It's all kind of overwhelming, all this content that's being made at this point. Like movies that it feels like they just announced Thor: Love and Thunder, and now they're just done filming. So it's pretty crazy, but it's also pretty cool. And also, he posted the picture of him being buff, which is great. I appreciate his buffness. Also, interesting thing about this picture, it seems like Thor's keeping the long hair again, because he had it in Endgame, right? Because he became Fat Thor, and so he stopped taking care of his hair. I'm assuming he's leaving it for Thor: Love and Thunder, which is kind of cool. So yeah. Now, Thor's production isn't the only thing that is wrapped, because this is the end of the first ever episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. I thought it was a pretty okay-ish video. I don't know if there's much entertainment to be had here, but maybe you got some neat information. Maybe you didn't know about some of these stories, and now you do know. So maybe you can hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified whenever I upload a new video, and also leave a comment or something. Also, just to be clear, these videos are recorded on Thursday, and then they're going to be uploaded the following Friday. So if there's any news that comes out like Thursday night / Friday morning before the video gets uploaded, that's why it's not in this video. It's because I've already filmed it. Maybe I might start adding in some audio additions where it's like, oh, let me add this in real quick. If it's something like really big, like Avengers 4 or Avengers 5 trailer or whatever, it's coming out tomorrow. Maybe I'd add in something like that, but if it's like a small thing, then I'll probably just wait to add it into next week's video. So just be warned about that. But yeah, good stuff. Um, I thought I was gonna burp, but then I didn't burp, and so I just paused awkwardly. Bye.